program evaluation tool, which is due the end of June, and all of our teachers are actively involved in that. And so on the original report, it says the next school improvement meeting is April 21st. That's been changed to the 14th. Everyone on the committee's been notified, but I wanted to let you guys know that was a change in the report. And at that meeting, we'll be kind of finalizing the program evaluation tool and then visiting all of our school improvement goals to see. This will be our third time revisiting as a whole group the school improvement goals to see what we've accomplished, what we still need to work on, and what will be needed to change for next year. Some of the activities that's been going on in the school, we had the NED show, which was a NED stands for Never Give Up, Encourage Others, and Do Your Best. So it was a positive message that went along with a bunch of yo-yo tricks. And so that is a free assembly for the students as long as we sell their product, which is the yo-yos, for 5 days. So that was a successful assembly. We've had reading month this month, the whole month of March. Today we had a big camp out in the hub here, where we had big tents and camping chairs, and each cohort had 2 different opportunities to come down in the afternoon. The kids had popcorn and water, and where they had opportunities to read to themselves, read to others, kind of listen to some spooky stories, and so that turned out really well too. Also, as a part of Reading Month, all the students in the building would come to the hallway and read for the last 15 minutes of the day as a group in the hallway, so that was really neat to see too. And some of that stuff is going to post to the Facebook. We were originally, we're working with John from the Buck Institute to get a school visit in to visit another school that does project-based learning so that we could see it in action and you know, kind of enhance our practice here. That was originally scheduled for March, but we were heading over to Berrien Springs, so it was going to be quite a hike, and that was a middle school, and so we wanted to see something that was going to be more aligned with us. And so John's currently working on a school in Novi right now, and so we're hoping to get that visit in the end of April.
Do you know what school that?
I'm sorry?
Do you know what school that?
No, he didn't say.
Hope it's not ours. Oops, is that it?
I'll let you know.
Not videotaping, are you saying?
No.
I wanted to give you more an update on the certification area with our teacher. We've been working closely with her as well as the state, and she, in order for us to not take a hit in our state aid, our teacher had to successfully pass an MTTC English test. She currently did that this week and has passed that test, and so now it's on me to work with the state to apply for her to get a full year sub permit that would allow her to sub for the extended period of 90 days in any classroom.
So just for those who aren't aware, because it's been a while since our last meeting, do you mind backing up and just going to the original issue, how it was discovered and what happened? Because some of the parents also are elementary school parents, and so we should just make it very clear.
Absolutely. Back when I was doing teacher mid-year evaluations, as the board knows, but the parents might not know, their cover page of the evaluations is an extensive overview of their certification, what meetings I've had with them, what days I've observed in the classroom, what's their expiration date on their certification, so a lot of things like that. And this was the first time using this tool, so when I filled those out, we did a review of files to actually be able to put the information onto their evaluation tool. That's when I noticed that that Ms. Kendra didn't have the proper certification to be teaching in the classroom that she was. A lot of our teachers, well, all of our teachers, except for her, have what is called the K-8 self-contained that allows them to teach in any K-8 classroom. And so our teachers switch 4 different subject areas, but they're still self-contained classrooms because we're with that homeroom teacher for more than 50% of their allotted time. So she didn't have that K-8 self-contained, so Ms. Denise and I contacted MDE to see about applying for a sub-permit, and at that time we were told we could not get a sub-permit for her. We continued to work with the state and did a survey online of what the deficits were, what the exact dates were, had a parent meeting with all the parents in those classrooms to kind of explain what had happened and what the change was going to be going forward. And so now we have different email communications with the state and phone calls that tell us exactly what we need to do in order to get her that sub
And so that doesn't give her the K-8?
No.
No.
And,
What does the secondary give her? That just gives her
Just
whatever
those.
she's specifically certified in?
612 and just
And
those,
612.
yeah, two social studies areas. So, the state was great with working with us on telling us, you know, exactly what we needed to do, and even if she didn't get this sub-permit, they still gave her credit for the students in grades 6 through 8 in teaching social studies, because she is certified to teach that. And so that's currently what she's doing now, Ms. Amy being the teacher of record for that classroom, but Kendra's still doing social studies just for students in grades 6 through 8.
So, if I can ask a couple questions. First of all, in terms of the hiring process, I mean, wouldn't this be a thing that would be pretty typical to figure out during the interview process? I've never been on that side of the fence, but, you know, how do we miss something like that?
Yeah, you know, we typically don't collect all the paperwork, Access Point does, and so that was one thing we contacted them, and, you know, because I thought, okay, well, I clearly missed it on my end, you know, but how did it slip through two parties, you know, to miss it? And so once we connected with them, they said they rely solely on us to do all of that stuff, and so that was kind of an eye-opener to us, and so we said going forward, you know, our first thing to do is going to be, we won't even have interviews with candidates until we have that certification and make sure that it's clear, you know, before the interview.
Okay, so help me understand. You say that you're going for this sub-permit, a longer-term sub-permit.
Keith, can I ask a question on that before you go to that piece? So who would be the group that's going to do the initial sort of filtering? Would that be Access Point? That would be you guys, okay. And you thought Access Point was doing that?
Yes, because they collect all the paperwork and put it on file and things like that, and so miscommunication, you know, I mean, I knew I clearly missed it, but.
But in the
then-
future, you guys know
Yes.
you are. Okay,
Yes.
sorry, Keith.
Yeah, and I actually contacted Access Point on this issue, and they asserted to me that that's not a role that they play. So obviously it was a misunderstanding. So explain again, because I think I didn't entirely understand. So we're going for this sub-permit.
Yes.
Has it been approved, not approved? Is it likely to be approved?
No, she just passed the test, this week, was it Wednesday? Tuesday. And so now it's us, we have to wait for her official scores. We have a preliminary report that says she passed, but, once we get her official scores, then we submit it to the state. And there's no guarantee that they'll approve it, but we can show that we had the job posting and, you know, what applicants we had applied for the job and things like that, and then it'll be in the state's hands, so they'll have
So
their test.
assuming that they actually approve it, then do the classes go back the way they were? Are they separated again? What are the implications of either getting the approval or not getting the
Right.
approval?
I think as far as getting the approval is just to avoid the state aid deduction. I think for lack of another change, to keep the classroom the way it is for the rest of the year, even if she's approved for the summer.
So I haven't really talked to any parents individually on this. What has been the response? Are they okay with what's going on? Are we
Very
getting a lot of
mixed.
negative feedback? What's
Very mixed, you know, we've lost a couple students over it, but the noise level is kind of one of the concerns from the parents in the classroom.
Right.
Some parents are concerned, you know, that now they're fifth and sixth grade students with, you know, seventh and eighth grade students in the classroom as well. And so, I've been open with all parents and have, outside of the large group meeting that we've had, have met with a couple other parents too about it.
So you have basically 2 classes in one room,
Yes.
and that's for 3 of the subjects? Or
They
that's
cover all
day?
subjects.
So that's all day they're with that, and then you have 1 teacher who's the, I guess, designated teacher for 3 of the subjects, and then 1 who's designated for the 1 subject.
Right.
And she's certified it.
Right.
Does that doesn't have any impact on the students in terms of them, I don't know, lack of a better term, receiving credit for the year? So that's more of a consequence to the school itself, unless, so is the sub-permit retroactive?
Yes.
Oh, so it would be,
Yes.
okay, all right, that's what it is.
Yeah, because that was a question that I had, and,
Okay.
they said that it would be for this school year.
And then she would be allowed to sub, well, we only
In
care
any
5A, that's
classroom
all,
for,
right? So
Yeah,
five,
'cause
but
I
she'll be
think-
5'8", and that would be any subject, but you're still gonna have the two
Yeah.
together.
So for regular sub permit, you can sub in any classroom, but you can't sub in there for 90
For more than
calendar
90
days.
days, right.
Yeah, and so this one would allow her to sub for, any long-term past that, 90 calendar days.
Okay.
So, to follow up then, let's just say that we get the long-term sub permit, for the remainder of this year.
Right.
What does that do for next year?
It's up to her. If she wants to continue in teaching, she needs to enroll in the proper classes to get the proper certification.
How long would that take?
Well, the state is okay as long as you're enrolled in the classes, so I don't know what her, like, official transcript would be, you know, to what classes she would need to take, but it would probably be a couple of years for her to get the official certification that she would need.
But as long as she's working towards it, she would be able to
As
teach
long as
it.
she's enrolled in the proper college courses,
Okay.
yes, but if she's not, then we,
At what point, obviously from a staffing perspective, you're gonna need to know for next year what the long-term plans are. At what point
Right.
will you have those conversations to understand whether you need to hire another teacher?
very soon.
And she just needs to be certified language arts. Is that what she wasn't certified?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, and I apologize, I don't wanna monopolize time, but these things are very important to me. One of the things that you mentioned was the penalties. Can you describe what we could potentially be facing or the likelihood of?
Yep. So the state calculates, they take our number of instructional hours, they take the number of instructional hours that we were out of compliance, versus the number of instructional hours in the classroom that she was uncertified in. And then however they calculate that, they said it was estimated to be about $2,500.
$2,500?
Total or per student?
Yeah, and they calculate per student and amount, or however they calculate it, so.
Thought I better ask.
Yeah.
Okay, and I think a final line of questioning for me is.
Yes, but they won't have it if she is.
Final line of questioning for me is, obviously there was this parent meeting that was scheduled to discuss it.
Yes.
You know, frankly, as a board member, I didn't know what the parent meeting was regarding. I knew that there was a parent meeting coming up, but didn't know the subject matter of it. And don't know the outcome of the meeting. I haven't been given any briefing for, what, a month and a half in terms of what's going on. This is the most information that I've received, and I have some concerns about that as a board member, providing oversight. So, did you make an effort to contact the board, and at what point in this process was the board notified of, one, the certification problem, and two, what remedies we were working on?
Yeah. I've been in communication with Robbie, immediately, you know, when I found out about it, you know, the steps that we were gonna take and all the updates along the way. I mean, I didn't tell him that she just passed the test, but
Right.
that was Tuesday of this week.
I can speak to that to some degree too, Keith. We did talk about it the day that she found out about it, and part of the communication was discussing it with Dave Lewis, our authorizer. Dave Lewis' preference was that Jen take the lead on this, that she look into the matters that need to be discussed, and so I asked her to then get back with me after she talked with Dave, and there was a plan between her and the MDE about what needed to happen. Because again, it's not our expertise, obviously we should know. I have told this board, and I can tell you that it's no excuse that I was on service in the unit that week, and I spent some delay in getting to you guys that information, but it was something that Jen was working on with our authorizer and the Michigan Department of Education. So in the future, certainly, I think efficiency of getting things forward, we can talk about. We've all talked about that. I have no problems with doing that. And I would say, you know, it's my fault if you didn't get notified right away. At the same time, Jen also is the person, being the principal of our school, who needed to deal with it and who was asked to deal with it as our authorizer. And we also need to be careful of stepping in front of her and the things that she needs to do to correct the situation. And again, she's speaking to what she did here. As part of our function is to then, you know, evaluate her job and what she's been doing. That's part of our function. So that is part of that. And again, you know, we can talk about communication, and I'll freely say that yes, that was a difficult week and a time for me to be able to get information out more quickly to you guys. And near the end of that week, everyone was aware, and everyone did know generally what was going on. And again, Jen was dealing with it through our authorizer and MDE and talking with them ongoing in those conversations between them. Because again, I'm not a administrator, Jen's the administrator. So.
On that point, I'm not aware of getting any information from you.
Send an email to you with the information about what had happened and the quote from Dave Lewis.
I certainly didn't have the information that I needed as a board member. One, to understand what classes were affected. Two, what our position was moving forward, the implications, what were the penalties associated with it. These are critical questions, and as a board member, to provide oversight over an issue in which, that we're in violation of federal law. And, we're not talking about a week, we're talking about a month and a half, where board members haven't been given the information. And that is of significant concern to me, because I can't provide appropriate oversight that I'm required by law to provide if I don't have information on very critical subjects. And I can't think of anything more critical than certification of our instructors and on how it's impacting the school. So I certainly never felt comfortable with that, and I did share with you in an email my frustrations about not getting anything, and I never heard back. And that's very upsetting to me, and I'm not really sure how we're going to get to this next level if not every board member is made aware of very important things that are happening in the school.
And I don't think the issue was, who would be in charge of that. I mean, clearly that's Jen. But, I mean, as Keith said, if the 6 of us are going to provide oversight, we should probably know of the details of these. So, maybe in the future, and we talked about that, just like having some sort of a plan to make sure that, like, once you were, I mean, obviously, the first thing that you're doing is trying to address that problem, getting a person in that classroom. But maybe finding a way that, a report could be disseminated to all of us, and then, of course, to all Branch County stakeholders. And I appreciate the fact that you brought the parents in that classroom. I mean, I think that was very good to do that. But for me as a board member, I was not going to be contacting MDE or Dave Lewis or anything like that. But being able to know, like the summary you just gave was fantastic. I think I know everything that I need to know now. So just finding a way to make sure that it does. And we know that you're going to have weeks like that where you're going to be, in that. So just maybe having some sort of a change to our policies to make sure that there's a way to disseminate it not just to us, but to all of the stakeholders. But that, for the future.
Yeah, I think that's perfectly adequate. That's perfectly adequate criticism. Part of that is real estate time issues, and that's part of it. At the same, I will say that regarding oversight, Jim was in constant conversation with our authorizer and MDE, so saying there was no oversight, I think is, again, we can debate. But at the same time, I do agree, and I think that, I feel like we can talk about communication of ongoing processes, because at the same time, I don't always get certainly daily updates. There are updates of after some period of time has gone by, and these things have been done, because that's her job to do administrative-wise. So there are things that you all think that, just communication-wise, that it's been a week or so, but I've always heard something that's been a week or so, because it's something that she's still working with them on. So those are issues, those are legitimate things that we can talk about and find ways to improve that dissemination of information, especially since we have outside board members that aren't even, around within the parent space, which makes a difference as well. And I recognize that.
The next thing on my report is the annual education report, the AER. This is a report that's normally done at the beginning of the school year. This school year, however, MDE has backed it up because of schools not having MSTEP data to be able to provide on this report. And so Denise and I will be working on that as soon as we return from spring break, as they just released kind of new deadlines and updates for that report. So we'll make sure that, actually we should have it for the next meeting.
And the only other thing I will say also is that if there are ongoing questions, and again, we talked about being able to talk to people, contact Jen. You know, if you haven't contacted Jen and talked about it, you can ask her about those things too. Not to say that you shouldn't disseminate from the board and us, but, you know, I encourage board members to have some relationship with our leadership, and I think that's important as well. So, moving on. Operations and culture reports, go ahead.
Access Point was on site mid-February. They do sort of an annual safety review, so they'll come and walk the building, check out anything that might be a hazard. And, you know, overall, because the building looks good. There's a mechanism they recommended that some schools are putting in for lockdown bills that nature, so they're going to send that to me. Essentially, it's something that can hold to the back of the door. So when you shut the door and lock it, it's sort of a really heavy-duty stopper. So there's no way to force entry through that door. So they're going to send that information if that's something we might want to purchase in the future or look into. You know, in instance a teacher has, you know, someone coming through the room, you know, gosh forbid, but things like that can help us.
Just for classroom doors?
That's what they're designed for, is the way he presented it to me, but I'm sure they have an alternate exterior door.
Well, except for most of the doors made of glass.
Excellent point. Yes, and the calendar is on the agenda, so we'll be talking about that a little bit later, but there's a couple things I just wanted to mention when we set the calendar up and we're looking at organizing for next year. The state did increase instructional days, so all public schools will increase 5 days. So we went from 175 to 180 days. Instructional hours are at 1098 per year. Once the calendar is approved again, it will then go to MDE because we are starting prior to Labor Day, so we need to get that permission from them as well. And then once we are approved all around, we'll get it up on the website. We have parents asking for next year, especially new parents want to know their calendar.
Okay, quick question. So when they increase the instructional days, does that also increase the money we get per student, or no?
Use such logic.
Okay, so yes, that's on the agenda for later. And then, year-end budget amendments will be coming soon. We'll be talking about next year's budget coming up for 16-17. We'll start, our committee will start talking about that in April, and then I'm hoping that we'll be able to present that for the budget, 16-17 budget for a vote to the board in May. There are a couple updates from the state regarding budget issues. One of which is they're looking at changing the count day and instead of a 90-10 blend, which primarily in layman's terms means that the October count is weighted a lot more heavily than the February count is. And they're looking at making that 50-50 because they're seeing a lot more students travel, change schools throughout the year, that type of thing. They intended to address that issue with that section 25E that was implemented a couple of years back, which meant that the money would follow the student sort of on an instantaneous basis. However, they're finding that there's a lot of paperwork for schools to handle, things get through the cracks, and essentially, you know, districts are fighting over that funding type of stuff. So they're looking at eliminating that portion altogether. So we'll see what comes out of the.
Is that an agnostic effect to the school, or do we anticipate that it would be helpful or not helpful?
It would be helpful from a reporting standpoint, a man-hour standpoint, that type of thing. But because we're small and we have very few people come and go, I don't see it being a major difference for us. It would help people wise, that's for sure. And some good news is that the governor did propose in his budget for an increase in state funding. Maybe you've seen that in the news, but that's around $120 per student that they're looking at increasing for public schools. Good. Okay. And lastly, I'm sure Alan will maybe talk about this a little bit, but we had the opportunity to meet with a to a parent who is an architect, and we talked a little bit with us about, we walked the facility, we talked about what might be some options for us, and expanding and looking at the 2 phases like we talked about in the last board meeting, primarily doing some separation in the largest classroom we have, a large dividing wall there, and then phase 2 would be the space that you see here, bringing that up to a full-time use. That was a great meeting, I thought, and we were able to have some good conversations. That's it for me.
I didn't print out the financials. Well, I did, but I didn't bring them with me. And I don't expect you to know this off the top of your head, but in terms of, the state doesn't provide branch line schools with its state aid until October, I think is the first payment, so we have to fund pre-Labor Day through October. Do you happen to know what fund balance we're going to need in order to cover that?
Well, this year we had to apply for the loan to cover
Right.
that, and I do believe we'll have to do that again for next year. I'm hoping we will not have to do it for the following year. Payroll on average right now is about 50 grand a month.
Okay.
That's the biggest thing that we cannot cover in that month.
Because I think if I recall correctly, I think our projected fund balance is about 50,000.
Right.
So
And for the end of the year, right? It's roughly
yeah,
54.
is that assuming that we've paid off the loan? The loan we paid off?
It has to
That's
be
part
paid off.
of
That was part of the
So the
premise.
50,000 is after the loan is paid off. Okay.
Correct.
Although it's not always available, available cash or available.
Right.
It
But-
cuts it really close. I mean, we've got rent, we've got,
Okay.
existing.
So the expectation is we're gonna, okay.
It's more of a cash flow issue than,
Right. Well, of course, so, yeah. Okay.
Well,
I'm the culture lead. Just lately, we've had a parent survey that went out to parents. And so that's active until tomorrow. We've had more responses than last year. I think we have about 25 in at this point, which is that 20% threshold that people keep telling me we should expect with any survey that goes out to the public. So we'll be able to report back to you guys about that at the next meeting.
Molly, what can we do to maybe do a second round of encouragement to, because I think that's pretty critical, and these are our constituents, and every family matters a lot.
Sure.
So is there anything that we can do that after the first round is done, send out another notice and say, this is really important to us? How do we?
Well, it's due tomorrow. I could send something out tonight. I've gone around saying. Yeah, I
Right.
might forget about it.
Yeah, right. Yeah, good idea.
Yeah, we do have, but there's a student and staff survey that we're readying, and that will be given out as well.
And I mean, I've seen some of those surveys before, and unfortunately, they're just not a good sampling, right? You don't know if it's really reflective of the overall population, and I think it would be nice to actually have something that was.
Mhm.
So the degree that we have higher percentage of participation helps us understand whether it's statistically relevant or whether it's just an aberration.
Sure. Yeah, and we've been, even as folks come in the morning and go drop off and pick up, hey, did you get a chance to do your survey? And, so, that it was also kind of together. So, yeah, and it's a very simple survey, 10 questions. Most everything is a click, there's a opportunity for comments after the question.
One of the things I shared, Keith, with Molly was maybe trying to, next year, Molly had gone to a training to help to kind of produce the surveys. And so I talked to her about maybe having the survey something tied to something where parents were coming to the school, whether it's spring conferences or whatever you have. And the principal at my school, his wife, who was also a principal at another school, they had tied it in with spring conferences, and as parents came in, they had computers set up for them to take them, and they could enter a raffle and win $5 gift cards or something like that. And so it was kind of to get the people there and have, instead of reminding them to do it, have it right there, they could do it right there. So maybe in the future, trying it to, if you did it twice a year, you could do it for fall conferences, or I don't know how you can do conferences, but you know, tying it to something where people are physically there and giving them an opportunity to fill it out.
And then I have,
Sure.
so, I'm part of the enrollment committee, as is Tanya. And so we've been meeting monthly, and so we've, you know, of course, kicked this into high gear because we're, in re-enrollments for current families and, but have reached out to the greater community. We are still enrolled at 140, about 11 folks on a wait list. Can't put them in until things kind of start maneuvering a little bit. We ask each enrolled family to be part of an interested family meeting. So I wanted to take a minute to recognize the enrollment committee. They've done great work. A couple of folks are here. But I had asked Dave Rousseau, who I believe is here. Dave, are you here? Thank you, Dave. So Dave has been wonderful. He's been at both of the interested family meetings that we've hosted so far. We have 3 more that we've already scheduled. Dave, if he wouldn't mind just kind of speaking from a parent's perspective, I could talk about the interested family meeting and how fantastic it is, but I'd like for him, he was a attendee last year and now it helps us fund him, so do you mind taking
We'll have you recognize you, go ahead.
I'll stand up. Yeah, thank you. This is my first year. I have 3 kids here. Everything was very ethereal for me last year going into the interested family meeting. So it was an opportunity to really feel and touch and stuff. And it was really what brought me here. So when Molly said, hey, we're firing up this committee and would I like to be involved? Absolutely. This has been a great opportunity. It's nice to see the families. It's a good opportunity for them. And it's been fairly successful.
Do you find that you have like high numbers in certain grades and low numbers in other grades? Or?
Yeah, we all run hot in the lower grades, you know, kindergarten, first grade. You know, folks who are maybe disenchanted early on, but, you know, helping the kids. But, you know, a lot of interest in kindergarten, a lot of interest in first, second, and then usually with the upper grades, we tend to get those people who do it.
Will it change the staffing at all, the numbers?
It always has the potential to do that. You know, in fact, we had to change staffing this year to create a new cohort.
Right.
We had, excuse me, so much interest in that 3-4 split. You know, I'm a little afraid to prognosticate about it because so many things change between now and then, just even with people who roster in more than one school and, you know.
Do the facilities provide us any flexibility in terms of like, would we be able to add another class if we needed to? No. Get that done.
Yeah. I mean, I
That'll come up in
think
the hub
that.
updates, we'll talk about it.
As we release these now.
So right now, we're basically, all the rooms are filled with classrooms that can be filled with classrooms and.
We have some room for additional kids in those classrooms.
But in terms of like a whole new, another classroom, another teacher, just nothing.
Yeah, we're enrolled at 140. I assume we're gonna be at about 120. And that's 20 goes. And that's all for me unless anybody has questions.
Tom, did you have the comment cards on?
Yes.
All right. Marcy, go ahead and.
You always pick me first. Okay.
Well, it just happened
I
to be on top, I
know.
promise.
My question is what's going on with Kendra, which was kind of answered a little bit in here. When I came to the December meeting, I expressed my concern because we had when Sue had first left in December, and the turnover again, my concerns with my son. He moved to branch line, he was advanced. Now we're lucky if we're even at grade level. And then I was assured we're gonna bring in the right person for the classroom, so on and so forth, which we did get the right person in. However, I found out a little over a month later that we didn't have the right person in Kendra on the other side. my concern is that Kendra's not gonna be here much longer. I don't know. I don't know if they're gonna let her stay here. I did do some investigation, because of my concerns. I did find out today that Kendra is a substitute. She does have a permit, which I do have, if you want it, I do have the documentation from MDE. But my other understanding with that too is that she's a temp sub, and this is where I got confused with what Jen was saying. But my understanding was she could temp sub 90 days from the time she's, 90 calendar days, thank you.
From the time
she started. And then would have to be moved to another classroom.
No,
Which
she cannot.
No, sub, okay, that's what it was, that's what he has a problem with the other subs that were here. Yeah, so how are, my concern is Kendra's not gonna be here, and after the outburst in class yesterday too, I'm concerned for my son in his classroom. I don't know if you're aware of what happened yesterday afternoon. Okay, well, my son came home and told us that in the afternoon, they did no work because Kendra was upset with them because they were disrespectful, loud, so on and so forth, and went on the whole afternoon about it. And expressed that she doesn't sleep at night because she's up all night grading papers, and that it's affecting her relationship with her boyfriend. This is what my 13-year-old came home and told me yesterday. My 13-year-old don't tell me nothing, okay? I have to pry it out of him. For him to tell me these things is huge. I'm just concerned. I don't know what to do with my son. He's in 7th grade. He's getting ready to get in high school. He's falling behind since I brought him here. What is the school gonna do? Someone needs to be accountable for this even happening.
So can I ask, is your concern that there's frequent turnover?
Yes,
Or is
definitely
the concern
frequent
the
turnover.
amount of kids in the class? What's
It's
the nature of
everything.
your concern?
It's everything, really. The turnover in the classroom. I mean, we've gone through in ELA history side, we've had 3 permanent teachers this year, not to mention the substitute teachers in between times. Last year, I mean, math and science we went through, we had a teacher until December. We had someone else come in. I think we had substitutes.
Okay, so I don't want to belabor this, but this is important.
Mhm.
So do you have an idea of what we can do better or different? Are you offering?
I'm at a loss because I keep being told we're gonna find the right people in the classrooms, but I have yet to have the right person in the classroom since we started in school last year.
So you're raising a concern, but you don't have an immediate solution. Is that inaccurate?
I don't know what the solution is, but as far as hiring someone that's not qualified, I don't understand how that can possibly happen. And I can't see how someone's not held accountable for it.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
I will say from the board's perspective, I think I generally can speak for at least many of the people I've talked to, that we share your frustrations over the rotation of teachers. I don't think any of us, leadership or otherwise, would want that. And it's been a concern, and it's been an issue that we've been continually worried about. And so, what do we do? Well, we're continuing to try to get the right people there. I know that's, sounds like a politician's statement, but the fact is, we're also concerned, and I just wanted to put that out there.
Right, I understand that, but I'm losing faith. After this last one, that's a hard one to swallow.
I understand. I appreciate the comment. Heather, there's a job in front of you now, sorry.
Heather Kennard, I'm a parent of a 2nd grader. My concern is with the older kids, hearing that 5th through 8th grade has been combined, and my concern is whether we are violating our charter in regards to that. 'Cause I know there's, the way we have our classes set up. And another thing, I have good friends, the Yusufs, and my concern is why are their parental rights being violated this long? I just don't understand it. They're good people, and I don't understand why they're not allowed in our school. Our school is a community-based school. We're supposed to be all welcomed, and you know, I just don't understand it. You know, I don't know if it's discrimination or racial profiling or what it is, but it's concerning to me because of the way our school, what our mission is and what our philosophy is. So that's all I have to say.
Kevin?
Sorry, Kevin.
Sorry,
Can I just ask a very quick question?
Sure.
So in terms of, because I meant to ask the question in relation to that when Jen was talking. So with the number of students that we have in the classroom, because it's taught in one classroom, how many students is that? Yeah, how many students would be in that room?
30.
So there's 36 kids in there with 2 teachers. What, Rodney, do you know whether, because we talked about at the last meeting that there was going to be a 20 student max. Do we have something in there like 20 students per teacher or still 20 students per class?
I have to look back at the language actually. I'm wanting to say. I don't want to say something that's going to be wrong.
So rather than say that, it's something I meant to ask Jen, so I appreciate Heather asking that question. Because I think that was one of my concerns. If we're saying it's 20 students per class, then what do we need to do to make sure that we are within it?
I've already reached out to them.
Okay, yeah. Thank you, sorry, Catherine.
What was your last name? I'm sorry. I usually I try to generally go by first names, but I'm glad to say Mr. Trini. Is that right?
Oh, I'm sorry, Trevini?
Trevini, sorry.
Please,
Yes,
Kevin
I'm
is-
sorry.
Please, Kevin is.
I was looking at the name. I should have.
It's a lot easier than Trevini.
Sorry. It's just the way it was written. I was thinking.
Yeah, that's my handwriting.
Sorry about that. Go ahead.
Thank you for the opportunity. I'm here today for a couple of reasons. First, to express how pleased I am with the education my children are receiving at Branch Line and how surprised I am with the growth and development of the school in these first few difficult years of operation. This is our second year here. We have 2 daughters here. And, I'm also here to speak with the hope that an improved communications plan and guidelines can help reduce the confusion that many families have had regarding school matters, as well as abate the spiteful and malicious actions of a small group of individuals who appear more interested in damaging the school's reputation than assisting in its continued improvement. I have high praise for my school. My own daughters have been flourishing in the multi-age classroom setting that attracted my wife and I to the school in the first place, and have shown tremendous growth academically during their time here. And I love hearing my girls tell me about the surprisingly sophisticated projects and activities they've been involved in, such as the Geometry City project that we were pleased to have been able to participate in yesterday. I've also been very impressed by the parent community, which, despite some unfortunate negativity from a very small vocal segment of parents, seems on the whole positive, engaged, and sociable. I've enjoyed numerous interactions with other parents at school-organized events at Rotary Park and Kensington, birthday parties with my children's classmates, and on-campus events. At Branch Line, there's always some exciting event or activity, and the sense of community is really evident here. However, I do believe it is worth reviewing or establishing policies for clear and effective internal and external communication. One suggestion I might offer is that existing communication channels be made more effective or expanded to appeal to a broader audience. Furthermore, I have some serious concerns about the tone and appropriateness of some recent complaints that communication guidelines may help alleviate. It is essential that the board and administrators encourage robust discussion and the active engagement of school stakeholders. However, such conversations should take place in the spirit of cooperation and openness, rather than with the kind of emotional attacks and attempts to provoke conflict and incite discord that I have observed from some quarters. Much of this is beyond the board's control, but it is my hope that a stronger communications plan and guidelines regarding board member interactions with parents might mitigate the impolite and incendiary remarks I've recently seen, and better foster the respect, integrity, and meaningful learning promoted by the school's vision statement. For any institution, a small business, nonprofit organization, or a new charter school, the first several years are the most challenging, presenting unexpected setbacks and expenses. Branch Line has been no exception to this, and I do not pretend that BLS has not faced some critical challenges and administrative oversights. However, I see a leadership team that is earnestly striving to remedy these matters. As recent correspondence illustrates, the school has responded to these issues with professionalism, addressing oversights, rectifying missteps, and putting into place action plans for long-term improvement. Yet, in spite of these positive efforts by faculty and administration to learn from mistakes and continue to improve students' educational experiences, some individuals seem so obstinately determined to stir up the mud that I might be forgiven for wondering whether their intent is to make the school fail rather than to see it grow. Rather than looking for ways to assist, they instead revel in the slightest misstep, frequently exacerbating problems or creating them in the first place through insinuation, intimidation, and inflammatory language. At a time when the school is hosting numerous fundraisers to raise a few $100s for expenses such as bus transportation for educational field trips, it is my understanding that tens of thousands of dollars have been spent on unnecessary legal consultation resulting from matters that could have been resolved through standard channels instead, illustrating the detrimental impact that individuals' words and actions are having not only on the morale of the BLS community, but also, and I stress this, on the quality of the student's education. It is my hope that such parents will either find more productive and constructive ways to improve Branchline School without undermining its mission of producing critical thinkers and informed global citizens, or that they will seek other schools whose philosophy better aligns with their own. In the meantime, I believe that clear guidelines about communication rights and responsibilities for the board, for administrators, for faculty, and for families might ease some of the recent tensions that have arisen and establish a model of civil, respectful discourse. Again, I'm proud that my daughters are students here at Branchline, and I'm very pleased with the progress that the school has made in 3 short years. I've seen tremendous growth and development from the time that we first came here for an introductory exploratory meeting to where we're at right now. And yes, there have been setbacks along the way, but I think that the growth has been very impressive. The efforts of the board, faculty, and staff to continue to improve the students' quality of education are to be commended. I very much thank you for your time and consideration.
You know, one thing that I wanted to share was I think that we probably, as a board, in the 6 months that I've been on the board, haven't done enough to recognize the staff. And I think that your comment about the sophistication of the projects, I think is really important. I've had the opportunity to go to a couple of the school improvement committee. What's SIP? What's P? Oh, school improvement plan committee. Thank you. And the discussions that the staff here has, I shared with, I think I shared with Denise, the first meeting that I went to, I told her that in my 15 years in working in other schools, it was one of the most interesting meetings that I've ever attended. And it really was a staff that was really thinking about what they were doing in their own classrooms and how that was impacting their students. I asked Jen for some information on what could be provided to parents if a parent asked, like, what's being taught in the particular grade level, and she sent me this this Excel spreadsheet that the teachers had put together, and it was I've never seen anything like it, to be honest with you. It literally laid out the standards and where they were covered in the curriculum and how it was going to be assessed. You know, when we talk about putting the right teachers in the right places and having less turnover and things like that, you know, I really think that it should be acknowledged that the teachers who work here do an unbelievable job with half of what is provided to me as a teacher in a classroom. You do at least as much, if not more, than what is being done in other buildings with significantly more funding. And so what you manage to accomplish on a daily basis, every single one of you should be praised for that. And so I know that several of you are here today, and Denise had actually told me after I talked to her in the first, I sent her an email, she said you should say something to the staff, and I completely forgot at the next meeting, so I wanted to share that. So Kevin, thank you for pointing that out, because I do think everyone, every stakeholder should know just what they do with how little they're working with. Absolutely.
Can you please stand up? Our awesome staff who is here as our own time.
Mary McFarland.
Yes, that's me. I'm very pregnant, so I'm going to first, I want to thank all the board members for all of the many hours that you put towards service to the families of our school every month. And I just want to let you know how appreciated that is by us
just wanted to take a moment just to let you know about the experience that my family has had here over the past 2 years. I have 2 children who are enrolled here at BLS. One is a 4th grader and one is in preschool. My 4th grader, when she started here last year in 3rd grade, she began her studies below grade level in both reading, and she was borderline in math, really. In the 2 years that she's been here, both her interest and her competency in both her reading and her math has greatly increased, particularly her reading. Until this year, as a 9-year-old 4th grader, she never finished a single chapter book, not even a small little 80-page one. But now, over the course of this year, she's halfway through her 4th Harry Potter book, a book of 734 pages. This is extremely remarkable for her and is hugely encouraging for our family. I credit this to 2 things. The first being the unique creativity that each of these teachers has for making learning enjoyable and rewarding. And second, the accommodation that her teachers have given her when she has difficulty focusing to complete her work. She has an attention disorder. I have helped my child to take charge of her learning, her own learning, by helping her to recognize when she is struggling and allowing her the freedom to communicate what changes she needs to her environment to make distractions. If she just says, I'm having a hard time working, can I go sit out in the hallway? She has a place to go, and accommodations are made for her. And I really believe that only the small class sizes that we have here at BLS will allow for those types of accommodations to be made. My preschooler, my Pathfinder, is a somewhat challenging child as preschoolers go. And she also has grown by leaps and bounds throughout the course of this year here. What we've found in the Pathfinder classroom is truly an educational partnership between parents, teachers, and student that has resulted in her not only learning skills for her kindergarten academics, but also life skills including empathy, kindness, generosity, and how to cooperate in a community. Miss Molly and Miss Jenny have both been extremely vital to my family in working with us to prepare her for kindergarten by helping us to set up a program of incentives that my daughter can work toward with good behavior and a positive attitude, in not only at school but also at home. It's a plan we've taken home and worked with as well. My family has found all of the teachers, the staff, and the leadership here to be accessible, easily approachable, and responsive to any questions or concerns that we've had. There are multiple platforms of communication here to have our concerns addressed. We realize that Branchline is a new school and that it's still growing and it's still forming its structure. And we've expected that there would be these periodic transitions and changes along the way. And I just wanted to let you know that our family is happy to assist in any of those processes if there's anything that we can do. I've heard that the board may have some ideas to improve communication between the school, the board, and the parents. And I just wanted to let you know that if there is any way that having a parent involved in that process would be helpful to you, that I would like to volunteer myself and my husband, who is at home with our children today, to assist you in any capacity that might be a positive contribution to you in that respect.
I have 2 other public statements. I do want to say, Sam, Yusuf, Ms. Yusuf, you mentioned in your comment you want to respond to Kevin.
Well, not
Well, just wait 1 second, okay? And I promise I'll let you
support,
speak.
not respond, actually.
Okay, well, okay, that's fine, but I just want to just be clear that public comment is for addressing the board, and it's not for debating among the public here, because certainly we don't want anyone to feel like they can't say whatever they want and have someone else talk to them or whatever. So I'm just being clear. If you have something to address the board, then feel free to address it, but we're not responding to other parents.
Thank you for that. That was just an expedience because I
No,
didn't,
it's
I didn't.
I have to clarify that.
Yeah, I didn't have a public
Okay.
comment, and I just thought that he made some really good points, and I wanted to support them, that's all.
Okay.
Just so it was kind of quick, so I apologize
Okay.
for just the scribble that I wrote down to be appropriate.
Okay.
Anyhow, so just eloquent kind of points that were made tonight to the board, and I think that absolutely there's some points that were touched about communication. You know, we recognized in the past year at Branch Line that communication is of utmost importance, and it should be held paramount. We realized that years past, that has been a huge stumbling point for us, and it continues to be. It seems pretty obvious. So on all parties and all stakeholders, it doesn't matter what the topic is, this is a public domain, and we should all be engaged, all be entitled, and we should have that opportunity to have a forum to do so. And I don't necessarily know that there is that entity that exists right now. Right now, we're limited to some public comment time, and that's about all the interface that most parents get with the board. You know, even if it's maybe small groups of the board in partial or a couple members or what have you, I think it's important because you need to get the temperature of this place to really understand. Also, I'd like to address some of the legal costs that you know, this school has encountered. I really want to make a point that, you know, there's some things that have been said in the school about, you know, and I'll just use myself. I have a bad name in this school, right? But I want to remind the board, and I will address the board clearly. You have a fiduciary duty by law to all taxpayers, not the ones that just attend this school, to abide by applicable law. And the part that's frustrating for me is our authorizer themselves have said some pretty bad things about this school and how it operates, and everybody kind of just looks it over. And I really feel like some of this is based more on keeping relationships together rather than looking and searching out the resources we need to make this a proper entity that holds the child and the families first. And I don't think that that's really the focus here. Instead, the focus is don't be negative. Don't be kind of a person who's going to call things out, which, by the way, I have all the right to if I want to, that abides with applicable law. I just want to remind the board that you guys have a serious duty to the law. Thank you.
And then lastly, Mr. Bruce.
Yeah, Alfred Bruce. I just wanted to let people know that the assault on my child was an assault. I have a police report for it. And I really, my wife was very disrespected when they said it was just a rumor. And that's what you call manipulation. And I don't tolerate that stuff. And I'm not going to be politically correct either. And there's a lot of things that happen in this school that are a disgrace. And it's all about communication, but when somebody lies to you and tells them that they sent an email stating that the kids were all vetted by the leadership, and I get there on Tuesday after the incident happened on Monday, and I asked every kid, and he said, no, they never talked to us. And they sent my wife an email stating that all the kids were vetted. This kind of stuff has to stop. You know, I'm not going to stand for it at all. And there's a lot of other people that feel the same way I do. And thank you for saying all the good parts about the school, because there are some good parts about the school. Okay, but from what my understanding is, when there's good, there's always going to be evil, no matter what. And my son happened to got the evil side of what has happened. And that has affected him too. And those policies, I don't know. Somebody handed me something to sign and I won't sign it. And the thing is that this whole thing should never happen. And the worst part is, the kid never got any reprimand for it. He never was suspended or expelled. I don't get it. The kid put an internet cord around his neck to try to choke him. And you're telling me you're not going to suspend the kid that did that? That is ridiculous. Absolutely absurd. So stuff like this needs to be addressed. Yet it's always pushed to the back burner, or somebody says that they don't know about it or something. Well, that's the communication between the leadership and the board, because you even told me that you didn't know about it. originally, when I was with him, right there, yeah.
But I
So,
didn't-
that you never knew that the incident with my son happened. Which is miscommunication with the leadership of the board.
I will only say this, and I appreciate your comment. Based on your public comment initially, the board did look into this incident. We don't discuss
Yeah,
disciplinary.
but why didn't you know about it after a month? You should have known about that.
Mr. Bruce, I did know about it.
Then why did you tell me you
I
didn't?
knew about it also when you brought it up in public comment. The public comment that you made, the board voluntarily decided to look into the incident and see all of the facts of the matter, including statements made by the children at the time and shortly after.
It's right here, the proof is
I
right here, buddy.
I understand. And we looked into the incident, and based on our review, things were done appropriately at the time. The matter's closed for the board. I understand you're being upset about the situation. I can totally understand that. But the board does not discuss discipline matters openly in an open meeting. And we did look into it. We didn't have to look into it. We don't have to look into things that are brought by public comment. We felt it was important to take the time to look into it. And Tanya, who has no children at the school, who has no person at the school
How
who's
would I have
involved
known
in
that
being on
unless you told
board.
me just now?
Do what?
How would I have known that you looked into it? When you
Mr.
just
Bruce, we
told
talked
me
about
now
this
that
at
you
the
did
January
that. I
meeting.
never gotten any report from you.
Mr. Bruce, in the minutes, in the January meeting, I've made the summary then and told you that we looked into it, and Tanya looked into it, and that we reviewed the situation. I'm not gonna discuss that situation
No,
any
I
longer.
understand that.
Because we reviewed it. And the matter's closed according to the board, but the school itself, according to what happened, did what had to be done at the time. Now, whether it goes from there,
No.
other involvement.
Nothing, the kid got nothing.
Wow.
We're not discussing discipline in an open meeting. And that's the last statement I'm gonna make from the board
Okay, that's it.
perspective on that. But I appreciate the comment, I understand your concerns about your child.
That's concerning for the rest of us parents if a child can be choked with a computer cord and nothing is done about it.
I'd like to
That-
address it.
That concerns me for the safety of my child.
And they lied.
Yeah, I'd like to address it because both Keith and I, when Keith had joined the board in January, at that meeting, the issue was raised. And so I've looked into it. According to the police report, the principal had already interviewed the teacher, one of the students, and some of the classmates. It says, and I'm quoting the officer here, while I was at the school, the principal attempted to get a statement from the child, but the parent became irate and would not allow the child to make a statement to the principal. So it sounds like, and Tanya, correct me if I'm wrong, when Jen had to make the decision, she was doing it based on the information that she had. And so after the meeting in January, Keith approached you, and I'm pretty sure that the question that he asked you was, what would you like us to do about it? I'm concerned about it because I'm a classroom teacher. And what you described to me is absolutely unacceptable in any classroom, period. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. And so Keith had approached you and he asked you, what is it that you would like for us to do?
I remember that.
And what was your
But what you're
response?
saying isn't true.
What was your response? What wasn't true? What I read off the police
What
report?
you read off the police report was true, but before that, they said they vetted the kids, and they never did.
Okay, well, that was an opportunity.
And they
So
lied
then Keith approached
to
you.
my wife and sent
because
an
he
email.
wanted to get additional information from you. Your response to what would you like us to do was, I'm not going to tell you.
Yeah.
Then Sam and I were talking a couple
I
feet
know.
away, and then you came over, and I tried to
Because I had
approach
to talk to my
you
attorney.
to get some
That's
additional
why.
information, and you wanted to lecture me about the difference between feeling and thinking.
Exactly,
So
exactly.
we then, in a conversation we had with the Yusufs, they suggested contacting your son's mother, and so we contacted Mrs. Bruce to try and talk to her. We attempted to set up a time to speak with her. So to say that no one cares,
So
to say
she
that
never even talked to you.
She never did. I can tell you how it ended. On February 5th, she sent us an email that said she wouldn't be available. She was sending
Yeah,
the
I
contact
never
information
did
to
that.
you, and you would contact us.
I never.
So my
never
point
did
is
that.
that we have tried desperately to get in touch with you, to allow you
Okay,
to
well-
give us any information that you wanted to give.
That's fine.
But you chose not
But
to.
the truth is the truth.
Right? It
The
is.
kid needs to be suspended, period.
Well, you know what? I have to say that every single person, I won't speak for the rest of you, but I will say that I have seen everything indicate that Jen made a decision based on the information that she had. And I don't know how we can say that she made a bad decision based on the information that she had.
Then why did she
We've
tell my
attempted-
wife that she talked to all the kids?
We have
and sent her
attempted
an
to get
email on
additional
Monday
information. There's nothing more we can do.
night?
Right?
Just
And I'm just gonna, because
Let's just- let's- I don't wanna say another word. Just
we're getting
don't
into
even
the
say it.
debate side of things. You know, I appreciate Jody for just.
I had to have the cops come over there on Tuesday. I'm the one that had the cop there.
But we're gonna move on from public comment, okay? All right. So, continuing business enrollment committee update. Do it, we did that, yes, sure. So, asked and answered, right? School improvement committee or school improvement plan, committee update.
That was pretty much what I talked about.
Okay,
before.
didn't know if there's anything else you wanted to add to that. Moving on. The hub committee update and building improvements. I don't know if Alan or, you want to take that? Go ahead.
So we met last week or the week before, to kind of go over the hub update, and a couple other issues came up. So we kind of have a couple phases for the, I guess, update for Branchline School. The first one is that with the volunteering of our parent volunteer for the architect, help save some costs. He's going to basically be drawing up plans to submit to the state for building a dividing wall in the classroom, which require an egress window and some more electrical wall outlets. So while he is drawing up and submit the plans by the end of April, it generally takes maybe 6 to 8 weeks for approval. During that time, he gets quotes in, and then he says the work is simple enough that it can be done on a weekend. So hopefully we'll have that done in the next 2 to 3 months after we submit the plans at the end of April. So 2 to 3 months after April, end of April. The second part is a hub update. We have to replace some flare doors. We discussed the mitigation system and immediate clarification on whether or not to go to electric stove. That gives us a cheaper mitigation system than having gas in there. We don't know if that's gonna save us money or not. And we discussed some different wall options for walling off the corner of this room for the additional classroom. We also reviewed the teacher answered building questionnaire regarding facility needs. And then I kind of reviewed a preliminary presentation of the demographic area, the student concentration and so forth, which I'm hoping at the next board meeting to have a presentation to give you guys a review of where we're at. So that's pretty much it for the public.
Any questions on that? Anyone?
Have we shared kind of like a timeline with parents and all the stakeholders in terms of, like you kind of shared, like we were gonna do this phase and this phase and this phase, and
Probably put something together.
I think that would be helpful to see that.
This meeting was very recent, so that timeline really hasn't been solidified.
Okay.
All right.
And so
moving
far,
on.
the cost is zero, is that correct?
No.
No, not yet.
I wish.
The current cost is,
Current cost is zero, looks like.
but the projected cost isn't terrible for the first phase, and then we'll see how much it costs for the actual building phase and so forth. All right, so the review and vote on the table policy 1130 conflict of interest. This should be pretty quick. We actually asked to table the policy really in advocacy for the teachers and staff, so that if they did want to do tutoring or make money with tutoring and stuff, we didn't want to restrict them. So the language, the only language that we were going to change, this is the wrong one. Sorry, it's on my thing. Give me 2 seconds. The only language we were going to change was in policy 1130. I know it was D, but we got a bunch of things open.
You know, while you're looking for it, another concern that I might have is if a teacher were to have like an after-school program or a camp or something like that, I don't think that we would necessarily want to restrict them from being able to have current students. So I think maybe we need to take a little bit longer look at it, because we were like, you know, I was suggesting just removing
Or pass.
or pass.
Right.
Because you know, if a teacher wanted to have some sort of an after-school program that they were paid for, I think that this would prevent them from doing that.
Well, we could certainly have language just stating that this would not include programs or activities outside of their role of authority with currents. I don't know how to really.
Yeah,
word
that's
it.
why I'm wondering if.
We can. We got plenty of other
How to do
policies
that.
to be looking over
Yeah.
today, so this isn't a terribly critical policy to get on board right now. But if we wanted, I'd rather do it right so that they're not restricted and try to get something together too quickly. So that's fine. We can table it for the next meeting.
And maybe Jen, maybe you could kind of work on that with the staff. Like, what do they want that piece to say? Because obviously we don't want there to be a conflict of interest, but we also don't want to restrict teachers from doing things that are in the benefit of the students as well.
And I think it's fine to just, you can share with them the entire policy, policy 1130. It's 2 pages, it's not very long, it's conflict of interest, but we don't want to restrict their ability to do so. Reauthorization status and letter to the board. So, I'm going to first speak a bit about the reauthorization status. We were happy to hear that we have been sorry, I'm losing my words here. It's not under final approval yet, but we have been recommended. Thank you very much. Sorry, we have been recommended for reauthorization for SVSU and SVSU's board, and we were recommended by our authorizer and the school university partnership office for a term of 2 years, and so that likely will come down the pipe. In case that there's any further confusion for anyone, by definition, that means that there is no concern about our charter or any worry about our charter being in any type of danger. So I wanted to say that. And that moves us into our letter that we got from SVSU, which, as I read it, I don't know any other way than to read it, read what we said, and read what they finally said back to us. It's going to take a little bit to do it, but I don't want there to be any thought that I'm skipping over something or that I'm not saying something that could be thought of as, oh, we didn't say that because that didn't sound good or something like that. So I don't feel like I have any other way to do it than to just read them. If anybody has any objections to that, let me know. But
That sounds like an awful long reading.
well, it is. I'm fine to paraphrase, but again, I don't want to make that decision. That would be the board's decision. So
I think it would be really painful to have to read all that.
I can agree with you, but
So, you have a,
Can these letters be accessible to parents to read on their own?
yes, they are absolutely accessible, and as of today, and currently, they are up in the minutes section of the board. So they're on the website.
I mean, as a parent, I don't want to listen to you read, no personal offense.
yeah, maybe we can just paraphrase, you know, maybe paraphrase what's going on, because that would be awfully trying for all of us.
All right. Not to belabor the point, Jody took a quick break, but I'd like for there to be a motion because I just wanted to be in the minutes that it was the board's decision that we should paraphrase it, and not my decision.
Yeah, I'll make the motion to paraphrase the segment.
Second. All in favor?
Aye. I'll abstain.
So it's 1, 2, everyone said aye, assume? Okay, then I will briefly paraphrase. So in December, we were actually quite surprised to get a letter from Saginaw Valley State University with concerns that we could have our charter at risk due to concerns they had with with our ability to apply, abide by FOIA policy, FERPA policies, and I was prepared to read it, so I wasn't as prepared to paraphrase. And to be sure that the evaluation process was done properly. There was concern that the wrong person, an unauthorized person assigned for the evaluation process on the MDE website was actually signed, and that they were concerned that there was also delays and or purposeful evasion of their questions regarding especially the evaluation process and other administrative items. They specifically asked us to speak to FOIA, FERPA. They also asked us to speak to the evaluation process, and said that we must be sure that these things are resolved or spoken to, or our charter will be offensive. Is that a fair summary?
Yeah.
Okay. Our response was generally that this was a bit of a surprise to us, because many of the items that they spoke to in their letter were either currently being dealt with or had been dealt with over the past semester, and the school university partnership office was aware of the process and was aware of what was going on with that. So our letter stated that as much at the beginning, including the fact that our annual review mentioned nothing about these concerns that was contained in Saginaw's letter. In fact, the only couple of things in our review, other than a green light on all issues, were a couple of minor things that were really clerical matters that were dealt with right away. And that we were concerned that they also had a thought that we were trying to avert our responsibility in communicating with them regarding evaluations and so forth. So we told them we were concerned about that. We did highlight the growth that we've made, the financial growth we've made, the educational growth we've made, and so forth. And then moved on in to speak to each of the areas of concern they had, with action plans related to those areas of concern. And that was broken down into the Freedom of Information Act, the FERPA Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act, which we also mentioned a review of COPA, which they didn't ask for at that time, outstanding contracts, which we spoke to, and reasons for moving from GPS, which, by the way, are here in this letter. I encourage you to look. They have nothing to do with personal problems. They have everything to do with GPS not providing the hours for IEPs and other problems that could put us at risk. We also spoke to evaluations quite extensively and our plans for that, and they were aware that our current evaluation process actually was being voted on around the time that we gave this response for teacher evaluations, and that administrative evaluations would be in place by the end of the year. And we also spent quite a bit of time in this explaining exactly the timeline of how the approval for evaluations happened to MDE, why the signature on MDE was done that was apparently not correct, and we admitted that that was true, but we were told that it was okay to do. And that is all actually labeled and put out in a date and time type format, so that they know that there wasn't intentional, we weren't intentionally trying to evade their inquiries to evaluations. But to make a long story short, GPS was providing part-time administrative help. You all may or may not realize or remember that Jen wasn't here, obviously. So the administrative person was actually Margaret, and she was only part-time, and she was hired through GPS. About halfway through the year, a little more, there were issues. Margaret was basically pulled from the space, and that effectively made GPS, as a company, our administrator. Well, that's a very, very complex and convoluted relationship, because there's no, I mean, Margaret was still the person on the books, but effectively that really wasn't all that was happening. And we explained this in the letter as well. So it made a lot of problems with how evaluations should be done, who should be doing them, and who should be signing off on them. And we rightly say it caused a lot of problems. We recognize there were a lot of problems with that process, but that process has now been corrected. We also talked about the freedom of, well, actually I talked about that, Freedom of Information Act. And we also talked about additional action plans. And I will note here that in their original letter, that SVSU mentioned nothing about having a principal restructuring our leadership so it was a hierarchical model, so we had one leader in the space. That was something we actually brought up with them. We had been discussing it in the background, but I encourage you to read the letters closely and show that that's something that we as branch line actually offer that we should probably be doing to make things more clear, not only for the parents, but for the school space, given Jen was doing the job that she was doing. Other things we talked about was, things that we could do like resubscribing to MAPSA, which is the Michigan Associated Public School Academies, and board development things, which by the way, we are going to be scheduling very soon for the rest of you members here. I just got finished talking to them today. And then also they mentioned in their first letter about some issues with a parent and parents and some of the escalating back and forth that happened with those parents. And you can read what was written in their letter and then what was responded to in our letter. And we actually have action plans for that. One of those action plans included reviewing the events and trying to come up with ways to deal with them more appropriately in the future, bring policies up. And some of those policies actually are going to be talked about this evening that directly came from that. We just summarized that we certainly hope to build the relationship further. I will say that when we worked on this letter, I personally, along with Jen, drove to Saginaw Valley State University. I met with Dave Lewis in person. He acknowledged after we went over him what we were going to be including in our letter that that actually our financial and our education limbs of our school were very strong, that yes, we needed some policy and operational things that we needed to shore up and there were mistakes made. He was very pleased with what we had and actually was very supportive at the time. Of course, he didn't say authorization or not or whatnot, but we did take the time to go to SVSU and meet with them. After we sent that letter, SVSU sent a letter back to us thanking us for the response, and basically, as far as FOIA was, the general overview is that they really, had no major problems with what we wrote back to them, which we assumed would be the case because we were working with them through this the whole semester, which is again why we were surprised the letter came initially. But for instance, the FOIA, they just say continue to assure all FOIAs are handled in a timely fashion and meeting requirements. The FERPA, again, just making sure that our practices are appropriate, et cetera, and that we remain compliant with those. The outstanding contracts, there was still one tweaking to the access point contract that was still outstanding, and they said had to be done immediately. That's already been taken care of. Evaluations, also saying that they were going to monitor our evaluation certification processes and that they would be following along with us, but there was no particular changes to be made at the time. And then operational plans, they again reflected that, mentioning a change in the names for operations and student affairs, which we actually did at the January meeting, so that's already been taken care of. They mentioned the 3-leader model and moving it to the more hierarchical model and making Jen the leader in the space, which we also already did at the January meeting. And then they also mentioned about Jen being supported by a superintendent, because what you all may not realize is that as a charter school, we don't have a superintendent. And that's caused a lot of the problems with the fact that there's no buffer between the school leader and then directly to the board. So many things can get, lines can be blurred when that happens. And so part of the recommendation in this letter was to have Jen speak and kind of mentor with a superintendent so she could know that side of the administration for our charter school as well. And as I understand, Jenna has already reached out to him as well and is going through that process. And that is generally what they said. Sorry, and regarding the parent issue, we're happy with the action plans that we had already done, and again, felt like the administrative model and changing that would help quite a bit, and asked us that, in even those parental concerns and other issues, and asked us to contact him with any concerns or problems. Did I misrepresent anything? Any other board members said, no, all y'all read it very closely.
I don't think you misrepresented, but I wanted to ask a question in terms of, obviously it's important that we do some follow-up with Saginaw Valley. Do we have a process in which the things that they've asked us to do that in a certain period of time, we're gonna go back to them and put the to-do action item down and check mark, and here's what we've done? Is there a process that we've determine would work out best? And what is the time period that we have that we think would be appropriate to respond and say, hey, we want to let you know that, we're in the 60 days since you've given us this letter, here's what we've done, and here's our plan to move forward.
I think that's a perfectly good idea. Most of these items, like I said, that have already been dealt with, Dave is already aware because they're things that he has to be aware of, like the contracts and so forth. We can certainly reiterate that in a correspondence. I don't think it's ever a bad idea to document that. I have no problem with that.
I think part of the problem in the past was that, even you said that some of the issues that he raised in the complaint letter were issues that have been ongoing and were in the process of being resolved. And so I think to the degree that we have a paper trail that indicates, hey, these are some concerns that you raised, here's some things that we're doing to abate those concerns. I think that probably goes a long way into organizing it for him, because he probably has a number of issues, ongoing issues with BLS, so if we can outline very easily for him, that seems to at least make sense in my mind that we're serious about following through on the recommendations that they had, and that we're making progress in each one of them. And it keeps us accountable that, hey, we got to keep on this, and someone's responsible for each one of these items. I wouldn't want to come back here sometime later and say, well, geez, we forgot about that one. We did the other 9, but we forgot the 10th one, and now we're in trouble again. So it just makes sense that we're tallying, and someone is responsible for responding to that event.
Sure.
And, I find it really unfortunate that in the 6 months that I've been on the board, the only thing that SVSU has done for the school is send us these Jekyll and Hyde letters. They have yet to show up for a board meeting. They've yet to send a representative. They've yet to provide training for the board. They've yet to provide training for the leadership. I've had several discussions by phone with Dave Lewis, and I've shared this with him. I think that, this is a very small school. I work in Novi. We have 6 people doing Jen's job. We have a curriculum director who has a staff. We have a principal who has 2 secretaries. We have all kinds of support for the people who are trying to run the school. And, SVSU wants to ding BLS for a policy or things like that. We just had to put into our budget $5,000 to purchase these policies. Why the charter is not helping small schools to do this is beyond me. The difference between this school and a public school, a traditional public school, is that my school can raise unlimited amounts of money through bonds. We pay for our technology out of a separate bond millage. We pay for our capital improvements. We build schools. We fix schools. What they're doing to the hub here, we take out of different things when we buy furniture. This school pays for every single thing out of the one small state per student amount. And it's $7,300. They pay the teachers, they pay the rent, they pay the utilities, they do all of the things that need to be fixed in this building, which we don't own. It pays for everything. If a teacher needs supplies, it comes out of that money. So it is a very small amount of money that is given to this school, and although $5,000 to a district like Novi is nothing, bringing in a person to help with a particular thing does not affect the budget. This school can be put in dire straits for very small amounts of money. I think our entire budget is $900,000.
8, almost 9.
Yeah. So again, I come back to what the teachers are doing with such a minuscule amount. It's as though they're magicians, and it really frustrates me as a board member that the only contact I've ever had with SVSU was to tell me that I was approved to be on the board, and then I get these letters emailed to me, mostly about things that occurred well before I was even a board member, and that I know for a fact had already been addressed. And so the tone of their initial letter is mind-boggling to me. If I don't believe that they contacted the board to inquire about this stuff, we're simply sent inflammatory letters and then forced to, there were 5 of us that met over our Christmas break, I think it was, to start addressing it. They gave it to us right before Christmas break and demanded an answer by January 11th. And so,
I wrote the final draft on a train from Chicago.
Exactly. So, it's absolutely beyond me why a chartered school is not getting better support from the authorizer. And, I can't even imagine
what it must be like to be on the administration or the teaching staff here, and to have your charter authorizer send stuff like that. And I'll be honest with you, the concerns that were raised, they're absolute concerns. They are things that need to be addressed. Some of them are oversights that should not have occurred, but they are things that are going to occur because the charter authorizer is not helping this school. So that's my response to their letters.
I'd actually like to make a response as well. You know, I agree with everything that Jody just said,
Oh my God.
but, well, we don't, yeah, I know, that's rare, and it probably won't happen again, certainly not in this meeting. But our view, our position as board is not to oversee the overseer. And we have, it's very clear in state statute what our role is, and while they haven't really been very good at providing oversight or help, and I've been on other charter schools where our authorizer was at every meeting, and that they were a great resource, and I had the guy's cell phone number, and we talked regularly about issues. That's just not what this organization does, and they never will be that organization. But as Jody pointed out, that there were issues that were raised that were appropriately raised, and it gave us some guidance, and frankly, a number of the suggestions that they offered, I thought were pretty valid. And I think that ultimately, although sometimes frustrating, you know, that helpful, and it is putting us on the right track. So as much frustration as as we may have in responding to that, I think if you take a step back and remove the emotions from it, that it's important that we follow through and that we're very, very diligent, and I believe that they're providing some insight that I think is very helpful for us. So that's my comment.
The only other comment I also wanted to make, because I want to be very clear. Obviously the last letter is dated February 1. So that's been some time. I wanted to be very clear that Dave Lewis has said from the time, because you'll look at the first letter and you'll be like, well, the first letter was December 8th. Why wasn't this being talked about, whatever? Well, we were asked by Dave to disseminate it once it was fully complete, meaning the final letter was given to us and we were moving forward. When the board puts things out, we do it in this forum. We talk about what the letters state. We talk about what's going on. We talk about how it happened. There's context that is important sometimes with these. It's important for you to hear other board members speak. And then we will immediately put it on the public post, just like we did the investigation issues that happened in the spring. We talked about them at the meeting. We talked about why and how and all that, and then it was posted right away. Same thing, process was planned and is planned for this. So I want to put out there that this has nothing to do with trying to wait to put this out. I would rather have gotten rid of this and dealt with this in February, but our meeting was canceled, and we had to move it, and it's been on the agenda. You can look back. It's been on the agenda, actually continuously. I mentioned in January we were asked to wait till we got the final results from Dave, so I would let people know. It was on the agenda in February, and it was on the agenda today. So I just wanted to be sure that that was clear, that the intention was to do it in that process, not to cause it to be delayed. The last thing is I do want to, this is part of it, so I'm going to mention it. But Dave Lewis also sent a follow-up email with his letter, even though it wasn't stated in the letter, because we were like, whoa, what does that mean, given the letter I just saved? And his comment on February 1 was, please share with your board, our intent is not to revoke or discontinue authorization. The intent is to assist branch line in improving operations, which is fair. And that was given the same day as the letter. Okay, moving on from letter into some new business, and hopefully we'll kind of move.
Can I ask, where can all the parents, not all the parents
Yes.
here, where can they,
So,
where will
you
that
know,
be?
it's like, where do you post it? Well, the previous legal counsel and board response, et cetera, was attached to the minutes in the meeting in the spring. Because there's no particular, we could probably put it somewhere on the website, but because we talked about it with this meeting, it will be a separate document, but in the minutes folder for 2016 for this meeting or in that time, and you can go there and see it there. And if we need to put it other places, we can, but that was how we posted other things before on the website, and so it's as part of the meeting minutes for this meeting.
So that'll be the transparency button. and
Transparency
then to the
button,
bottom,
down to
Board of Directors
minutes,
meetings.
2016, and they'll be right there, all three.
Great.
In fact, they're there as of right now. Yes?
I consider myself an educated person, but I would have never ever, I mean, I don't particularly like the Bridgestone website. I love BLE, Molly. Very hard to navigate as a parent, like just a general parent. I don't know if I would have known to go to transparency reporting
Well,
and down to all those steps. Can that possibly be put in the BLE for parents who don't navigate around websites very easily? Does that make sense, what I just requested?
I couldn't even find the board meeting.
Okay, then I don't feel so.
And now I had to contact.
all right, if we're gonna, this is gonna get into the.
I would just like-
The only thing that I will say, I hear what you're saying.
It's just
We
just a
po- we-
guideline of how to find it.
We have just posted it there because that's how we posted things with the meeting, because we're talking about it in the meeting. It's
I'm not,
30
I mean, I'm not debating where you post it. I would just like to know
I
step by
think
step
that-
how to find it.
I think that's a
or
good
link.
idea, maybe in the BLE, we can just put in
That's all I'm
there
asking for.
how to find the minutes for any sport.
I think that's
Or a
perfectly
link.
fine.
That's
But
all-
we're
I
gonna-
don't want
Then
to-
I can
hold-
find them.
Okay, no more public comments, because again, we can't do
Yeah,
back
I
and
don't want to
forth.
debate, I just want
I,
direction.
recognizing your comment, Jody, I think that that's perfectly fair. The only comment I will make, this has been brought up multiple times, our website has been meticulously vetted and mandated by our authorizer to be in a certain order.
I know.
The reason the board stuff is down, down, down is because they said it has to be down, down, down. So, yeah, would I like it to have a different button and another way or be more prominent? Sure. But that's how we've been asked to do it, and we've said we can't change it. And as the website is currently vetted right now by SVSU and MDE, both say it's perfect in their mind, so
Right.
it's the way it is. So I'm gonna move on though. I think that's a fine idea, Jody, and certainly we can have Molly, you can mention that those letters will be there in the minutes, and I have no problem with that. And we can do that. And how to get this. Okay, moving on to new business, all right. Proposed school calendar for 2016 and 17. Everybody had a copy of this for a couple of month and a half. So I'll open it up to discussion on the school calendar, and I would welcome leadership to have add any comments they feel like is necessary. Right.
A couple parents had contacted me, expressing that they wanted to make sure it was still on the balanced schedule, which I honestly didn't know what that meant, so I thought I'd bring that up. I assume that was like the on, off, and I'm sure you guys would know, so is that yes?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I believe they mean the Fridays and so forth, and
Yeah.
That's part of this.
More traditionally, it means a 6-week
Right,
break in
but
the
I think
summer,
that-
and then you have more frequent breaks throughout the year, just to add to what you're saying, but it's based on great research, getting staff breaks, and we've had a lot of great feedback from staff certainly, but from parents as well.
And then we're not we have to submit a request to start before Labor Day, which is not necessarily guaranteed. Do we know when we would get that
As soon as
approval?
we get this approval